Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulihi Kareem. Wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wa qul jaa al-haqq wa zahaqa al-batil. Inna al-batila kana zahuqa. Qala rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. I welcome all brothers and sisters with the Islamic greetings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Meaning, may peace, blessings and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be on all of you. The topic of my talk is terrorism, a Muslim monopoly. We know that many a times two different labels are given for the same person, for the same individual, for the same activity. 72 years back, India was being ruled by the British government. And there were many Indians who were fighting for the freedom of the country. And these Indians who were fighting for the freedom of the country by the British government, they were called as terrorists. But we common Indians, we call them as freedom fighters, as patriots. Same people, same activity, two different labels. If you agree with the view of the British government that they have the right to rule over India, then you have to call these people as terrorists. But if you agree with the view of the common Indians that the Britishers came to India for business, they have no right to rule over us, then you have to call these people as patriots, as freedom fighters. The very same Britishers, they called Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Subhash Chandra Bose as terrorists. Do we agree? Not at all. Just because the Britishers say, just because the Americans say, we don't have to believe. We have to fight for justice. Therefore, before you give any label to any individual, you have to try and find out for what cause is he striving. There are several such examples in the world history. I will give an example of the American Revolution, which took place in the 19th century. The British government, they were ruling America, and there were many people who fought for the freedom. And these people who fought for the freedom by the British government, they were called as terrorists. And number one in the forefront was George Washington and Benjamin Franklin. Imagine George Washington, he was called as terrorist number one by the Britishers. And later on, the same terrorist number one, George Washington, he later on becomes the president of USA and the godfather of all the presidents to come, including George Bush. Imagine the same people who the Britishers called as terrorists, now they are allies. The time keeps on changing. Depending upon the geographical background, depending upon the historical background, what we come to know in short is that whoever is in power, whatever label he gives, it gets stuck. Today America is supposed to be in power, they have the media with them. So who they call as terrorists, the label gets stuck. But I can say very well that we have got established proof from the very same media controlled by them, from CNN, from BBC, that we know that thousands of innocent Afghans have been killed in Afghanistan. Even if we agree 9/11 they say was done by Osama bin Laden, even if we agree for the sake of argument, no proof, hypothetical. When the Afghanistan government wants proof, George Bush gives it to Tony Blair, he gives it to Musharraf. And normally, even if we agree for the sake of argument that Osama bin Laden did it for the sake of argument, does it justify killing of thousands of innocent human beings? And normally on international level, there's extradition policy that whenever a person who is a culprit in your country goes to another country and sits there, you can get him back. For example, India and UK have extradition policies. A few years back, one of the music director, Nadeem, according to the Indian government, he was involved in murder. He goes to UK, India and UK have extradition policies. But when they wanted him back, they said that first prove he is a culprit. They could not prove. Many people from India went there, our police force went there, they could not prove. And they even had to pay the lawyer's charges of Nadeem. We know that in the Bhopal gas tragedy, thousands of innocent Indians were killed. The person responsible of Union Carbide goes to America. We have extradition policies, nothing happens. Imagine India attacking America, give that person back. Is it right? Why will they do it? It is proved, Union Carbide, thousands of innocent human beings killed, injured, wounded, damage for life, families ruined. The person goes there, we have extradition policies, nothing happens. So America and Afghanistan don't have extradition policies, yet it does not justify killing of thousands of innocent Afghans. More than 3,000 to 5,000 Afghans were killed. And later on, after a few years, goes to Iraq. Weapons of mass destruction. They go there and after the attack they don't find anything, yet they are controlling Iraq. And the people of Iraq are more troubled. They were troubled with Saddam Hussein. He was not a good Muslim. He was not a practicing Muslim. I am not in favor of him. But the trouble the people of Iraq are facing after America has come to power is multiple times more. More people are being killed. More people are being robbed. More people are being raped. And the main reason is it's oil. It's an open secret. And according to me, terrorist number one is George Bush. Now when we see the records, we come to know that the president-elect of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, he said that the biggest terrorist in the world is George Bush. The president-elect of Bolivia, Evo Morales, he said that George Bush is the terrorist. The famous singer and activist of America, Harry Belafonte, he said that the biggest terrorist in the world is George Bush. An MP in UK by the name of George Galahad, he said that the biggest terrorist in the world is George Bush. And he said that the blood that is there on the hands of George Bush and Tony Blair is far more than the blood that is there on the hands of the bombers that have done the bombing in London. And he said that it would be justified if a suicide bomber goes and kills Tony Blair without injuring any innocent human being, that suicide bomber will be justified. Former CM of West Bengal, Jyoti Banu, said that when George Bush came to India, that George Bush is a terrorist number one. Everyone says that George Bush is a terrorist, but the Indian government wants to invite him. For what? So that we learn the art of terrorism. An article came in the newspaper that the Nobel Prize winner Betty Williams, she said that she would love to kill George Bush. She would love to kill George Bush, which I differ. We Muslims, we should not be afraid. We should speak the truth, but with hikmah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the glorious Quran, in Surah Nahl chapter 16 verse 125, Udu ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah wal maw'izatil hasana wajadilhum billati hi ahsan. Invite in the way of your Lord with wisdom and beautiful preaching, and argue with them in the ways that are best and most gracious. So when we speak, we have to speak with hikmah. Now we realize after seeing the scenario that who has the monopoly on terrorism. According to me, terrorism is the monopoly of the politicians. Irrespective, they may be the politicians of USA, UK or India, it is the monopoly of the politicians. If we want to abolish terrorism, we have to realize what is the cause of terrorism. First, we have to understand the root cause. And the experts say that the cause of terrorism is injustice. When injustice is done to a particular group of people, when wrong is done to a particular group of people, they tend to retaliate. And that is the only cause. And when we realize, whether it be the 9/11 or the destruction of Twin Towers in New York, or whether it be the 7th of July bombing in London, or the serial train bomb blast in 1993 of Bombay, whether it be the thousands of innocent human beings killed in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Gujarat, in Bosnia, in Lebanon, in Palestine, we find that behind them the major cause are the politicians. I was wondering that why were 21 young Muslims arrested in UK? The government said that they were tracking them for months. So the people wait, when should this news come out? At that time, Israel was attacking Lebanon. Thousands of innocent human beings were killed. The Britishers were objecting, so there is a diversion. Same thing in India. Any problem, the politicians talk about Pakistan, talk about Kargil. Diversion politics. Whether it be in India, in USA or UK. The main cause are the politicians. We know that 72 years back, India was being ruled by the Britishers. And they had a policy of divide and rule. We got freedom from the Britishers. Unfortunately, they have left, but they have left the policy behind. And now our Indian politicians have adopted this policy of divide and rule. They adopt this policy of divide and rule for their vote bank. From the records, we come to know that the country which has the maximum number of riots anywhere in the world, it is India. If not daily, at least once a week, we have a communal riot. So many great legends. Maximum riots, communal riots, and the major cause, almost all, directly or indirectly, they are the politicians. For their vote bank, for their power, for the money, they engineer these things. Generally, the common Indian, irrespective whether he is a Hindu or a Muslim, they would love to live with each other harmoniously. They would love to live peacefully. But it is these politicians who engineer hatred among different religions so that they could fill their vote bank. So terrorism is the monopoly of the politicians. With this I conclude my talk. وآخر الدعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.